Hello! Welcome back to I'm Working Late.
Welcome back to I'm Working Late, everybody.
This is the start of season 2.
This is the start of season 2.
So for episode 1 today, we are joined by none other than Matt O'Brien, who's a criminal solicitor and also a partner of a specialist criminal law firm and the most recent president of the Birmingham Law Society. Welcome, Matt.
Welcome, Matt. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
No,
not a problem. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. I'm a bit nervous, actually.
We're in the midst of presidency.
So, to get us started, do you want to give us a bit of a background into how you got into law and what made you decide to get into law?
Yes, of course. Can I first say thanks again for inviting me, and also I'm a big fan of the podcast.
Thank you.
I think a lot of the issues you've covered, imposter syndrome, overwork, burnout, all of those things, that they can affect sort of leathery old characters like me just as much as they can.
I said yeah. Sorry,
she agrees.
I was like, yeah.
So thanks. Absolutely love the show. So. You were asking me about my journey into law, I think. So I didn't know any lawyers growing up. I was the first in my family to enter into the profession. So I think there's no roadmap when you're in that situation. And so I think a lot of that was finding my way, and I took a slightly non-conventional route in. I think what drew me to law in the first place was really about using whatever skills I had to help other people navigate what is an incredibly complicated and system that often they're not equipped to deal with themselves. And I think that's what drew me into the law, and then I've ended up being in criminal law because that's really what that is all about.
Being a successful lawyer.
Yeah, very successful. So branching off from that then, talking about your presidency, can you tell us how you got involved with Birmingham Law Society?
Yeah, of course. So just for people who are watching or listening and don't know, Birmingham Law Society is a membership organisation which is made up of about 9,000 lawyers, and that is everyone from students, paralegals, trainee solicitors, barristers, any flavour of lawyer that you can imagine. And so it's a body that represents the interests of all of those lawyers, provides a community for them to be a part of and help them through their careers and with their networks, and represents their views on a national stage. So that's what Birmingham Law Society is. I first became involved probably about 10 years ago by joining the Criminal Law Committee. That is I am somebody who spent their 20s and most of their 30s not thinking that I was ever going to join a committee, and I was persuaded to sort of sit in on a couple of meetings, and I thought to myself, well, this really does offer me something. It gives me a seat at the table, which I wouldn't otherwise have. I became chair of that committee, and then from there joined council, and eventually put my hat in the ring to be president, which I have to say I'm only a month in so far, and I'm loving every minute of it so far. So ask me in 11 months how it's gone. Yeah.
I wasn't aware that the Birmingham Law Society had different committees.
Oh yeah,
I wasn't aware that was a thing.
Yeah, so we've got, I think at last count, about 12 professional committees, and so we've got committees that cover different areas of this is a shameless plug, isn't it? But,
promote it all you want.
Absolutely.
Honestly.
Look, I've got the platform. I'm going to use it.
Do it.
So we've got about 12 committees that represent different areas of practice and also specialist areas of interest. So we have an EDI committee, which has itself a number of subcommittees like LGBTQI plus subcommittee, REACH subcommittee, disability subcommittee. So I think there is pretty much a committee for whatever area of law or area of interest you have at whatever stage of your career you're in. And for those listening who are members already or are thinking about becoming members, it's a great way of getting involved in your local legal community about within your specialist area. I mean, just to give you an example, within, I think, 2 weeks of being appointed chair of the Criminal Law Committee, I was down in the Houses of Parliament giving evidence to the criminal, to the Justice Select Committee of the House of Commons, on the issue of court reform, because we'd put in a response to their consultation on court reform, and they asked me to go down and give evidence. So that was terrifying.
Imposter syndrome.
But also, seriously, that was a room I did not feel remotely comfortable being in. But it was a great experience, probably unmatched, and I can't see what other. How else I would have made it down there, I don't know. So it's really just through it's through being part of BLS and the committee that got me at that table.
It's really interesting.
There's a video of it somewhere. Don't look at it.
Everyone goes in the comments.
So, going back to your sector specifically, criminal law.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you've done your fair share of murder cases.
Yes, yeah. So not so much recently, but I have done. It's an incredibly daunting prospect, actually, and it's something that I think, whatever stage of your career you're in, it still gives you a slight sort of shiver down the spine when you're dealing with a murder case. There is something about just the word and the whole everything around it that kind of creates this emotionally heightened atmosphere. There's all sorts of reasons for that. First of all, somebody's died, and usually that's in very sudden and tragic circumstances. So obviously that lends a sort of an emotional weight to what's going on. Also, as a defence lawyer, from the point of view of the person you're representing, the stakes are so incredibly high, because there is only the outcome of conviction is only a life sentence, and everything that flows from that. And so there's an enormous pressure to make sure that you have done your part to make that process fair, which is really what the job is all about.
I'm shocked that you say it sounds like a shiver down your spine when you hear about it, because whenever I think of criminal law, the first thing I think of is murder. So I just feel like you'd be so desensitized to it, maybe, but maybe you just don't do the volume that outsiders think you actually do.
I think there's a difference between being desensitized to something and having an element of professional detachment from it. Because I would like to think that I've always got an element of professional detachment where I can, compartmentalize what I'm doing, because that does no service at all to my client or to the court or to anyone else in the process. If I am actually getting emotionally invested in what's happening, I've got to be able to give that, as we all have as lawyers, we've got to be able to give that emotionally detached. But that does not mean to say that, privately you feel an enormous weight of responsibility, as I say, because the stakes are so high. And also, in your private moments when you go home from work, there is an emotional weight to what's going on. Undoubtedly.
As expected, I think. With a murder trial, how do you prepare for that?
Well, I think it's strange, really, because actually often the issues in a murder case are factually and legally not that complex. Often factually and legally, I'm just got to get my words out there. Are not as complex, for example, as a lot of the financial crime and white collar crime that I now mainly deal with. But so the issues are often quite straightforward. It's just, I think what makes it more heavy to deal with is that sort of extra responsibility that you feel to make sure that you've got the decision's right and that you've done everything
Yeah.
you could to make sure there's a fair
There's
outcome
like
to the case.
a moral element to it as well.
I think there's it's
As always in law.
it's, yeah, I mean, I suppose it's less a moral judgment than a sort of just that making sure that you have fulfilled your duties to your client. Really, it's that because they're at the end of the day relying on you to put their case across and to challenge all of the evidence, and you've got to make sure that you've done that.
Yeah. You touched just on white collar crime.
It is white collar.
White collar crime, not blue.
Yeah, I think
I say this all the time. I never ever get it right. What is the difference?
Blue collar crime, I think, is like assaulting Bruce Springsteen or something.
What is blue collar?
I think, is blue collar a job? Like a form of job, like a trade job?
I think blue collar is more like sort of what you might call like a working class sort of job.
Yeah.
I just think we've all got a collar
I
on.
think
We're all in the office.
Blue, white, black, whatever you fancy.
Pink in Holly's case.
We've all got a collar.
We've all got a collar. Anyway, but on that topic, fraud is your specialty, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
That can sometimes be deemed as less dramatic, I think, than violent crime. And I touched on that earlier, whereas when I think of criminal law, it immediately goes to murder, not fraud.
Yeah.
How serious do you think fraud is in the eyes of the law?
So, well, fraud is massively serious, within the world of the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
It's very important to the courts because often the sort of white collar fraud cases take up the most court time. Actually, they often take a lot longer than, for example, a murder trial.
Right.
And so the courts are very keen to make sure the cases are dealt with efficiently. Fraud is such a massive area of crime now; it's impossible to ignore, and obviously the victims of fraud, it can have devastating effects on, you can lose your life savings, your house, or everything that you've saved up your life for. It can cause, enormous issues in terms of, you'll never get your confidence back. You lose your trust in people. So, there are all these issues around fraud, which, it's hugely important for the victims of fraud. And, as a defence lawyer, the consequences for my clients who are charged with fraud, not only prison, often the outcome, particularly on the sort of scale of fraud that I'm usually dealing with these days, but also, long-term effects, because if you're convicted, you'll often have your assets confiscated. That can hang over you for the rest of your life. You could, you yourself could lose your house, your pension, future savings, all the rest of it. So it has really important ramifications for my clients.
Yeah.
And again, there's that weight of responsibility about making sure that you've done everything you can to advance their interests and make sure that there's a fair outcome.
How long typically is a trial for fraud?
Well, it depends on a case-by-case basis, but they can often be 6 weeks at least, sometimes going into 2 or 3 months of court time. So they are substantial things. And with the best will in the world, often the time estimates of these cases are too conservative to start with, and they overrun, and there's a knock-on effect in terms of, other work can't then be done by the courts. So, yeah.
What are the sentences like? So what's the least that someone would, the least significant punishment someone would get compared to the most significant punishment?
Well, again, there's a whole range. I mean, there's the Sentencing Council publishes sentencing guidelines on fraud. But if we're talking, for example, of a fraud of a value of £1 million or over, then you're almost inevitably looking at prison as an outcome, and that could be many years in prison, depending on mainly the value and also your specific role in the fraud, and also, for example, if the victims have been caused a particularly harmful impact as a result of the offending. So, it can be sometimes double figures of prison.
You said then about your involvement in the fraud as a factor.
Yeah.
Do you find that it's typically individuals, or is it more likely to be groups of people that are committing fraud, like like a gang almost.
I would say these are cases. It's less often that you see just one person in the dock in the sort of cases that I deal with. It tends to be usually people grouped together who are all said to have agreed to commit a fraud together. So in criminal terms, that's what you would call a conspiracy. So a conspiracy to commit fraud of some sort, or to, for example, launder money.
Yeah.
So it's quite unusual to just see, certainly in a case of that size, there to be just one person in the
unless they're a mastermind.
It could be. Yeah.
No comment.
They don't get caught by and large.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
They wouldn't be there if they were a
They
mastermind.
wouldn't be there if they were a mastermind. When I was at school,
rubbing it back, Holly.
going back to my school days.
Anyway, enough about you, more about me.
Okay.
I had a talk from some reformed criminals, and one of them had committed ostrich. Right. And one of them had committed ostrich fraud, like the animal, the ostrich.
What they pretended to be an ostrich?
Explain.
No, like they like sold ostriches for more than they were like supposed to be, and committed fraud and saying they were these and they weren't.
Is that like an aspect of money laundering?
Okay.
Like they were selling ostriches to cover up?
I mean, I was 16,
They were
so I
cleaning
wasn't
it through ostrich sales.
something around that, but he was convicted of fraud.
How long did he get?
Well,
did
that
he say?
seems-
He got a while. I know he got a while, and he had a family and everything. Have you experienced any ostrich fraud on that case
Any
line?
wild
I
fraud?
can't say that I have.
Livestock fraud.
I mean, I have. Yeah, I think I can put hand on heart and say the courts are not inundated with ostrich fraud. The Met haven't set up a sort of specialist ostrich department, as far as I'm aware. But that's a new one.
it's an interesting
I wonder
one.
if
I did
he
see
was
a
the
thing.
first
Couple of sorry.
No,
Macy,
that was just a thought.
I did see a couple of years ago. There was, I think it was in China, so it wasn't an English case, but it was in China. They were selling lambs as Bedlington Terrier.
I've got one of
puppies.
them.
Have you got a Bedlington Terrier?
Yeah.
Oh God, I would love a Bedlington Terrier.
So I had a Bedlington Terrier before called Dolly.
Yeah.
She lived, I can't remember if it was 9 years or 12, but she had a long life. And now we've got another one called Olive
So
and a poodle.
that's wonderful, and I want one. But apparently in China there was a gang of folk selling sort of lambs as Bedlington Terrier
Yeah,
puppies.
because
they look
they're
quite
looking
She
alike.
kind of
yeah,
gives
I mean,
lamb. Yeah.
Do you think?
I like to
Yeah.
think I could tell the difference as a country boy, but
Yeah.
I you never know.
Whenever we walk the dogs, the little kids, they usually refer to her as a goat. And
I
they'll
can see
say,
that.
are you walking a goat?
Mm.
And I think you can see that a little bit more than a lamb.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
But with Dolly, she looked more like a lamb. Olive's more
Dolly
goat.
the sheep.
Dolly the sheep. Well, why do you think we called her that?
Yeah, got it.
Why do you think we called her that?
Sorry, that was just a brief flight into
Yeah, we really
fraud.
digressed
We've
then.
gone off- we've gone off
I got
the,
so
track
excited
there.
here in
Anyway,
Bedlington
I've-
Terrier because you
I've
never
enjoyed
hear
it.
it.
It's,
No one ever has a Bedlington Terrier. Like I think they're quite rare. I mean, there is another one round by me.
So I'd never seen one until I watched a film called Sisu, which is I want to say Finnish action film, which it was a good film, but the main character in it has a dog, and I thought the dog was so amazing, and looked it up, and it was Bedlington Terrier.
Yeah.
So
It was
ever since
Olive.
then I've wanted
They
one.
are the best, honestly.
Yeah.
Do you have a dog?
No, I don't.
No.
I'd love one. My daughter would love one. It's a long-running thing. My wife's not keen. My son's not keen. So we've never been able to arrive at a landing, shall we say, on whether.
Well, I say
we're gonna have a dog or
compromise
not.
and just get one. Just bring home a Bedlington. Anyway, back to the topic of the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask quite a
Yeah,
heavy
yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Biggest challenge that you think lawyers face today? Or biggest challenges?
Oh,
Let's go
gosh.
plural.
Okay. Oh wow. Yeah. I mean, I think there's where to begin.
His
so I mean,
mind's on Bedlingtons.
I think certainly one of the things that being president of BLS gives you is a sort of an overview of what other lawyers are worrying about as well. You know, in terms of in other areas of law. Because I mean, we're all, I guess, you're probably not at your stage in your career, but we become so siloed in our own little area, and you have your problems and you sort of deal with them. And I think where I am now, I have this overview of what everyone's sort of feeling. I think probably the biggest issues across the piece are really recruitment and retention of new lawyers. I think there are issues around, all sorts of issues around routes to qualification, the new SQE, retaining talent. Also, I think, and I don't want to sort of add to the discourse on this, but, AI, for example, the role of AI.
The dreaded AI.
We all sort of talk about it to death these days, but it is there. So I would say probably they're the biggest issues, I think, certainly that concern people that I speak to across the board. We've all got our own issues. I mean, with criminal law, I think there's I think our biggest problems are legal aid, the funding of criminal defence work, the amount of investment in the whole criminal justice system completely, from front to back, and that has a knock-on effect on the longevity of the profession, because there aren't any new criminal defence lawyers that there aren't, there just aren't. You don't see any young faces in the courts.
Are you finding that less people are aspiring to go into criminal law then?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you'll have had this yourselves, I'm sure. At university, on your LPC, whatever it might have been, you'll have been discouraged if you ever were interested in going into crime.
Yeah.
You'll have been discouraged by your teachers and probably every other lawyer that you've spoken to.
The typical phrase, it's not where the money is.
And that's just across the board. I know that's true.
Yeah.
Because that's the conversation that everyone has at some stage, and it as a result, it means there aren't any new faces in criminal law. The people, it's terrible for diversity, and certainly looking at duty solicitors, for example, in Birmingham, they tend to be aging, say middle-aged. They tend to be men, and there are fewer and fewer with every year that passes. So it is a problem.
What would you say to a student or a junior who's thinking about going into criminal law but isn't sure?
Okay. I mean, I've had this conversation with a number of students that I've spoken to who've come up to me to say that they were interested in going into criminal law. And what I've told them is if it is something that you are really interested in, then nothing that anyone says to you about the working conditions and about the amount that you're paid will put you off.
Yeah.
It is a bug that once you are bitten by it, you won't want to do anything else. And generally speaking, you want to do it because, like me, you see value in helping people through some of the most stressful times in their life in a system that they just don't have the equipment to navigate themselves. And so that, I think it's something that if you feel it within you, to the extent that you are not put off by those conversations in college or at the LPC, then you will do it, and you will get there. And despite what you are told about pay and things like that, you can still make a living doing criminal law.
Yeah.
There are no sort of starving criminal lawyers. We're not at the stage. We're just at a stage where so many people have been put off doing it. There aren't any new entrants. But if there was a new entrant, then they would have, potentially a promising career ahead of them. It's not going to make them as much money as it would if they went into corporate law or pretty much any other area of law. But,
anything else.
But they'll find fulfillment in the work that they're doing, which is worth its weight in gold.
What do you think the future of criminal law is if people don't go into it? Like, what does that look like? Are criminals just not being convicted? Like, what actually happens if
it's a problem?
it's a serious problem.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we are starting to, because the National Law Society have done quite a bit of research on this, and William Gibson, one of my favourite writers, says the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. And that's the case with criminal law, because actually in parts of the country there are already places where there is, for example, only a handful of criminal defence lawyers, to the point where if you are arrested and you want advice from a lawyer, which is your legal requirement, there isn't necessarily going to be a lawyer who turns up, because there just aren't any, and the handful that are available aren't able to come out at that time. So we're already seeing that in parts of the country. Thankfully, Birmingham is an awful long way behind that, but it is a problem, and I do see, unless something really serious is done by the government, and it has to come from the government, then we are. We're going to be in trouble down the line.
What do you think the solution is for that, though? Do you think it's just going out maybe into schools and universities and kind of encouraging people to pursue criminal law, or do you think, I don't know how to solve that issue?
No, it is difficult, isn't it? I mean, I think I think there would need to be some resource put into making criminal law a more attractive career option than it is at the moment, and I think that would have to go hand in hand with some outreach. Which, I mean, it's something I've been thinking about. I think it would have to be a big piece of work, and I think it would probably have to be joined up with either other local law societies or the National Law Society, the Law Society of England and Wales, in terms of trying to get that out there.
Yeah. On the topic of, how the justice system serves people, we've spoken about how it serves those in the profession. Do you think the current legal system adequately serves vulnerable or low-income individuals? And if not, what needs to change there? Or what would you change if you could?
So, I think it's interesting, because in terms of people who are on very low income, so sort of welfare benefits, in terms of the provision of legal advice, certainly in the criminal law, they are very well served, I think, because they do get, by and large, a very good quality of advice and representation from experienced professionals. The issues there are in terms of sort of middle income people who don't qualify for legal aid, because the threshold is set very low as to who qualifies, but who can't afford to pay for a lawyer at the market rate, and those who do pay, if they're successful and they are found not guilty at the end of their case, they don't get any of that money back. So they've lost money, often a lot of money, funding their own defence, and it's what's become known as the innocence tax, and it's a massive problem. So I would say, in terms of, if you're on very low income, by and large, you get a very good quality of advice, but it's the sort of people who fall in the middle, who are sort of going to struggle to pay privately, but who aren't eligible for legal aid, who are facing a lot of problems there.
Yeah.
I forget. You asked me a number of questions rolled into one there. I'm sure I think I've only answered the first one. But,
I just said, if something needs to change, what is it, and what would you change about?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I mean, again, it's all resource driven, isn't it? But I think it would be a significant improvement if they were to lift the threshold on to increase the threshold as to who qualifies for legal aid. And also to go back to the system we had sort of 10 years or more ago, which is that if you are successful at the end of the case, you actually get the money back at the end.
Moving on to kind of the digital transformation that's taking most of the world vice storm at the moment.
The majority.
AI.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Do you think AI is a tool or a threat for lawyers and the legal profession?
Or both.
Yeah, I mean, it is a tool, isn't it? I mean, it is a tool.
By
and
definition.
I think, yeah, and I think we're that box has been opened, and I think it's very difficult to shut, and I think we're stuck with it, and I think we've got to try and work with it as best we can. I use it myself. I have an AI thing built into our firm's case management system, and it's very useful for sort of summarising high volume cases in terms of digesting a lot of paper and giving you a summary of what the different parts of the case are about. So it's very useful in that respect. I think the problem that I can foresee a problem where it means that it's sort of if it replaces, for example, the job that a trainee solicitor would do in terms of me giving you a file and saying, look, can you summarise this and tell me what the issues are? Can you go away and do this bit of research on the law? That might be quite a dull job for you to do, but it's actually you're learning from doing it, and it's a really important part of the learning process. It's what I did, and it's definitely made me a better lawyer from having spent years doing that as a junior lawyer. And I'm just a bit fearful that we're reaching the point where, for example, if I'm not giving you that file and saying go away and do this, I'm instead going to my AI and saying, give me a summary of this, tell me what the law is about this, then you're not learning anything. Yeah. So you're not necessarily developing those skills that you need to make you a good lawyer. And also, as an employer, I think what I am worried about as well is that more and more employers are going to say, well, why have I actually got a trainee if they're not actually doing any of this work, and I've got an AI to do it? And that then I think causes problems with succession, and you're then looking at other areas of law, a bit like criminal law, where you've got no new entrants in it because there are nobody's taking on any new lawyers. It's difficult, isn't it? Because I without putting your sort of futurology hat on, it's difficult to see what will come of it, and there are clearly potential opportunities and benefits to it as well. So I don't want to be completely doom and gloom about it, but it's both it carries both a threat and a promise, I think.
Yeah. We had a discussion about the Big Four taking that approach and getting rid of graduate opportunities and replacing them with AI. And I do think you just encapsulated it perfectly, that there's no succession then. And I think people have taken it too literally when they've said the future is AI.
Yeah.
And they've taken it as in that's all that it's going to be, and there's not going to be a person as well as AI.
Yeah.
And that's really scary as someone in their junior career, because we're now thinking, well, what does the future look like for us? We had 5-year plans and now what?
So we do.
And now what do we do? It's terrifying.
Yeah. I just think, I think it's one of the problems when you look at sort of lawyers and law firms as being a sort of commodity or an investment vehicle, as opposed to being a sort of a living, breathing part of the society in which we all are. So, I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I wish I did.
This is a bit off the topic of, it's still on the topic of AI, of course, but off the topic of, how that's going to impact us in the future. I actually had a call today about AI, and I wanted to get both your opinions on this, because it was something that when I was in the call, I was like, whoa, I need to discuss this with someone else, because I'd never thought about it. Okay. Surrounding AI is that risk of breaching confidentiality. You're not allowed to put client details into AI or anything like that.
Yeah.
And someone raised a question on the call and said, well, what if the person I'm sending that to then puts my response into AI and it's got all the client info and things like that? you haven't breached the confidentiality because it's not been you putting it in, but then all the client data is now stored in AI. You know, if you're sending, it was in regard to litigation.
Yeah.
And it was, if you're sending something over to, you know, the defendant in the case or whatnot,
yeah,
and they then put it in ChatGPT to say, summarize this legal document for me, all the information is now in a web AI, not like a legal one that we use in the firms. What? It really stunned me when I heard that question.
I mean, we obviously, in terms of things like case papers, they might contain personal data, but obviously we have a professional duty to provide those to our clients. And I think what our clients do with that is, in a sense, not necessarily our legal responsibility as lawyers. I mean, look, come on, our clients all put this stuff into ChatGPT these days. I mean, how many letters or emails have you had from clients in the last couple of months?
Just bot to bot.
Clearly been written by ChatGPT. You know, it's just going on all the time now. So yeah, definitely that is what's going on. But I don't see how we can necessarily try and take responsibility for that happening. I think obviously there are certain categories of material where, you know, we may not be able to provide for example, if I'm dealing with video interviews of vulnerable witnesses in domestic abuse cases, say, for example, I only have that on an undertaking that, although I can view it with my client, I can't provide him with a copy of it. So things like that, there is, absolutely, I've got a, legal obligation to the court. I've given an undertaking effectively that I'm not going to give my clients a copy of that. But I mean, the rest of it is, goodness knows what's out there, really.
Whoever asked that question,
ChatGPT is probably wondering what on earth's going on.
Everyone on the call was like, I don't think this has ever actually been considered.
Just done to speak.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But on the topic of confidentiality and like personal data, etc., I wanted to ask you, in the field of fraud, does identity theft fall under that? And I know we had a brief discussion about the dark web. And I want you to share that with everyone.
So I mean, so a couple of years ago, I was involved in a case in which my client was trading on the dark web with, I know, the dark web.
The dark web.
Yeah, you already know this is not going to have a good outcome. So he's trading on the dark web with what I discovered are known as fulls, Fullz, and they are so called because they are a full record of a person's personal information. And so it has that it's literally like a sort of
bizarre.
like a an A4 page like that. It's obviously digital, but it's got your name, it's got your address, it's got various accounts, Deliveroo, Amazon, all the rest.
Deliveroo, Just Eat.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm sure it's got that one as well. But it's got your password, your probably your mother's maiden name, the security questions that you're likely to have put into, in case you need to reset your password, whatever it is. And it's got all of this information, and I learned, can buy these for probably about a tenner a pop. And it's a bit like buying a sort of lottery scratch card, in the sense that, you pay your tenner to get a thing. You can have a crack at getting into their account, and it might work. They might have no money in it. They might have changed their password, so it might be worthless. But equally, it might not. It might not.
Who knows?
And you might be able to rack up quite a bill before anyone knows what the issue is. And that's essentially that's what featured in that case. And it was, I mean, as it was a bit of an eye opener, as you can imagine.
Yeah,
because you're like, well,
I'm just before we had this conversation before, I was so unaware that was even, I went home and told my mum, and my dad.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, we had the exact same conversation.
I was like, guys, you need to know about this.
You need to know about this.
You definitely need to know about this.
I mean, I have to say, I think it's that sort of thing and the sort of prevalence of that, which is why, even though it is just so annoying, that all of these things these days have the two-factor authentication and they send the thing to your phone and all the rest of it, because, you know, it provides that extra layer that you're not going to be able to get from your fools that you've bought on the dark web. So
all that information that's on the dark web, that's probably from a data breach somewhere.
It's bound to be, yeah. I mean, I don't know where this stuff's from, because that's not really
you don't trade in fools.
That's not really what this case was about. So the limit of my knowledge is really what came up in this particular case. But yeah, it's presumably it is from one or more data breaches.
I just want to link that back to me talking about confidentiality and AI. Do you think, now that I know about fools, do you think that AI is assisting in people getting access to people's data from what people are putting into AI?
I mean, undoubtedly it is.
Yeah.
And I suspect that what I have said about fools, which, you know, is a case a couple of years ago, and the events of which probably happened a couple of years before that, I think we're probably already well moved on from there, given how
Old
sort
news.
of AI, because, you know, AI has enabled fraudsters to target their frauds in much more sophisticated ways and on a scale that, you know, you couldn't imagine doing. The old sort of email that you would get, which clearly had been sent to thousands, if not millions of people, that sort of says, you know, I'm sitting on a fortune here. If you just send me the administrative fee, you'll be rich. And it's badly written, and it's clearly just a load of nonsense. That we're moving past that now, and we're getting, with the assistance of AI, sort of much more targeted phishing emails that look, you know, plausible and, you know, are reasonably well written and look like they might have come from people that you would actually know about the sort of things that you might be in correspondence with people about. And so it's getting more sophisticated, and that's down to AI. I've just plug the book of a friend of mine. So
it will be linked.
Ben Douglas Jones, King's Counsel, and Anya Josephine Tyrrell, who have written a book called AI in Criminal Law, and I would recommend it. It's a very short book, but it talks about, firstly, the ways in which sort of criminals have been turbocharged by AI. Secondly, how law enforcement's been turbocharged by AI, and thirdly, as to how you can use AI in your practice of, I mean, criminal law, but also, you know, any area of law to turbocharge your own practice as well. So it's a great book. It's only very short, and I would wholeheartedly recommend it.
Sounds like a good read.
Yeah.
Give that one a go.
You mentioned that case with the fools was 2 years ago, so evidently, you know, AI has been assisting people.
Yeah.
How do you think the rise of digital banking and crypto has changed the landscape in regard to fraud cases? If it has.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I mean, in terms of digital banking, that's been with us for a long time.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think probably throughout my sort of practice, specialising in white collar crime, digital banking has been a thing. In terms of crypto, lots and lots of cases these days involve some aspect of crypto, either in terms of being the vehicle of fraud, or the vehicle of money laundering, or the way in which, you know, the proceeds of a crime are then laundered. It's just one of those things that you sort of find that you have to get on top of, because it's just everywhere and it's part of the conversation around all of the cases that you're involved in. So
is one of the main skills of being a criminal lawyer, you would say, adaptability?
I think it's probably these days one of the skills that we all need, isn't it, as lawyers? I think you've just got to try and stay as adaptable as you possibly can, really, because I think we all things are all, you know, technology is moving so fast, everything around us is, you know, changing so fast. I think we've all got to stay adaptable.
Off the back of that, what are the skills do you think we need as lawyers?
I think the one thing that really remains a constant, and I don't think that it will go away as a result of AI, is ultimately, I think, all of law is about the relationships between people, whether that's criminal law, whether it's corporate law, any aspect of law you can think of, it's about people. And it's about having those human skills of empathy and communication, and those are not going anywhere. ChatGPT is not going to overtake the ability that we have to have a difficult conversation with somebody, or to give them advice that they might not want to hear, or that might be a really complicated thing that they're going to struggle to explain, and having that sort of ability to empathise and to really break down those barriers of communication with people. I think that's really what all of law is about at the end of the day.
How have you found in your seats that differs? Because I've had a lot of emphasis on client relationships, on the the business side of it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, from someone who's been around different seats, how have the relationships differed for you?
In the business heavy side of things, in the corporate seats, business development is much more sort of encouraged and much more necessary, I think, rather than, like, for example, in a regulatory seat that I'm doing now, there's less emphasis on business development. I think, but then again, also in family and private client, there's bits of business development that you do with barristers' chambers and stuff like that. So it's completely different, I think, for each one.
Right. Because I've found that there's, like I said, a lot of emphasis on client relationships, but it seems to be that everything comes back to it. Like, you need to do this because we need to maintain the client relationship. And that was something that I wasn't really aware of before I actually started working.
I think
like at law school, you just think, okay, I'm going to go do the work and that's it. But no, like you said, it's a lot more about maintaining those relationships and having that human feel.
That's absolutely right. And that's good news for us, because I think AI is quite a long way over replacing that sort of
AI cannot replace us. No, but on a lighter note, then let's make it a bit more fun, a bit lighthearted. We're going to do a quick fire round.
Okay.
So as short as an answer as you want, or as in depth as you want. Favorite legal drama or movie?
I'm going to show my age here, but this life. Any takers? No.
Side eye.
So when I was probably about 15, it was a big show on, I think, BBC, and it was about young lawyers who were just starting out in their careers and sort of finding their way and discovering what they wanted out of their career, and sort of those sort of relationships you form in the early days. And it was great. It was the first time I'd ever really seen lawyers on screen, the TV screen, who were sort of relatable and were sort of going through the same sort of voyage of discovery that I was at the time. So I would say, and it was, the acting was great. It was really well written.
I'll have to give it a watch.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. You touched earlier, you mentioned a book earlier. A book every lawyer should read. AI in criminal law.
Yes. So the book I would recommend, that is a book I would recommend. The book I would recommend as an advocate, the book I would recommend is a little book called The Devil's Advocate, which is written by, I hope I've got his name right now, Ian Morley, I think, King's Counsel, who it's a really short book, and it's a book about how to prepare for doing advocacy well in a criminal case, but it would apply in just about any area where you have to do actual sort of oral advocacy on your feet. And it's a fantastic book. It's written in a very unusual way. Some of the pages, for example, only have one or two words on. It's you could read the whole thing if you wanted to in a sort of less than an hour. But it's a book I go back to time and time and time again.
It's a staple.
Just to sort of drill a few things into my head and just have a word with them. So
one to check out.
Yeah.
One law that you'd love to change.
Proceeds of Crime Act.
Okay.
2002.
Quick response.
No hesitation there. He knew that.
It's. I think it's the way in which it can create effectively a debt or a potential liability over somebody that can last for their entire life. It can completely stifle any chance of ever rehabilitating yourself after committing an offence like fraud or money laundering. And it can mean that, for example, if you're convicted of one of those offences, even as a young person, it can leave you in a situation where, for example, you can never own a house in your life, because if you do, and the prosecution find out about it, they can come back and say, right, we're having that.
I didn't know that.
And so it can mean that sort of a youthful indiscretion that you've paid the price for, in the sense of you've gone to prison, you've done your time, but actually it means that it completely puts your life on hold in terms of getting a good job, buying a property. It's a piece of legislation, in my view, that needs radical looking at.
Yeah. And then finally, the quick fire round. No, overall, do you prefer working late or working early?
Late.
Late. The podcast, or do you actually?
I prefer the podcast, obviously, but I prefer working late. I am not a morning person, and I would much rather stay up late to get a job done than wake up early to do it.
Do you want to know who is a morning person?
I'm sure you seem like you'd both be morning
No,
people.
Holly, what time did you wake up this morning? What time did I get a text in the group chat?
1:05 a.m.
With a full face of makeup.
I mean, I think I was still awake at 1:05
And there's a photo to prove.
I'm fairly sure I was still awake
Now,
at 1:05
this was
a.m.
accidental. I don't know what woke me up, but it was something.
Don't know what went wrong.
And I just thought it was time to go to work. And
Okay.
I looked at
She was eager.
I was eager to film this podcast. I looked at my clock, and my first thought was, clock's broken. Not, let me check my phone to check that it is 1 a.m. My first thought was, clock is broken. So I got up, brushed my teeth, had a shower, put my makeup on. I got to the mascara stage.
Took a photo.
And thought, hold on a minute, the house is very quiet.
It's dark.
Yeah.
And realised it was 1:05. Only been asleep
What did you
2
do?
hours.
Did you take your makeup off and go
I
back
just
to bed?
sighed
Or?
and thought, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And then took my makeup off, went back to sleep, and started
Another
all
4
again.
hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it's really funny because I've actually done the exact same.
Have you
before.
ever done that, Matt?
I can't say that I have.
There's something wrong with us.
I think throughout my career I have had a then girlfriend, now wife, who would probably sort of tell me if I was about to leave the house at 1:05,
Yeah.
thinking it was the start of the working day. I'm fairly sure she would, if that was on the cards.
We both did the same as well. Doubted the clock.
Yeah.
I was like, no, this is.
Clock's
It was
wrong.
my phone as well. It wasn't even a clock. It was the digital phone that everyone relies on, and I was like, it's wrong. I'm gonna be late for work.
That is the fear. On that note, it's been a pleasure having you today, Matt.
Well,
It really has.
thanks very much. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much for filming with us. It's been really insightful. If you want to find Matt, LinkedIn, Birmingham Law Society website, all of
Yes.
that good
They'll
stuff.
be in the description.
They'll be in the
all
description.
Of the usual
Yeah.
places.
Yeah. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching our first episode back with
Yeah.
our guest. We've really enjoyed it. Thank
Thanks
you.
Thanks very much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.